So I had a video request on the stuff that I'm doing off the back. So we're gonna go a little bit in depth on this rear naked choke analysis. So first, defensively, when I'm trying to choke my partner, there's a couple things they're doing to help prevent the choke. One of them is having their shoulders rounded forward and then they're tucking their chin, okay? So now from the attacking perspective, I need to unwind that. So I need to unround his shoulders and I need to make it so that his chin gets lifted up. So the way that we're gonna do this, if you have long enough legs, we're gonna do the body triangle where my leg, instead of having both hooks, as we come back, my foot goes on the hip, my leg comes across his waist, and then we lace the body triangle. So the reason that the body triangle is so strong for this, if you're long enough to do it, is once I'm here and his shoulders are rounded forward, all I need to do is connect my elbows to my partner and then pinch my elbows back and then hip in, and it forces the shoulders open. And that also makes it so that the chin comes untucked. So a cool thing that you can do, and we can even test, is if I have my partner go to his knees right here. So as we're sitting here and his shoulders are rounded and his chin is tucked, it's easy for him to have his chin tucked. If I grab his shoulders and I put pressure on the center of his back, now as I'm stretching him out here, which is a nice little stretch, but if he tries to tuck his chin right here, go ahead, tuck your chin as much as you can. That is, right? So if I can add enough pressure to their lower back, it'll prevent the chin tuck from happening. So if my partner's able to end up in this ball with his shoulders rounded forward, it's gonna prevent me from even getting to the rear naked choke in the first place, okay? So that's one of the first things I'm gonna talk about. So whether I do the body triangle or just regular hooks, so now that I have the back, so if I just have regular hooks, I'm just making sure that at least the elbow of the top arm is pulling and drawing back into his shoulder as I drive my hips forward. And that starts to open the chin and it's gonna help me dig. Rather than having them be forward with their shoulder, and now I'm just digging and I'm fighting his neck. We're battling back and forth here. So that's one of the first battles that we're fighting. The other battle, or actually I'll say, you should be able to use your regular hooks and draw that elbow in front of the shoulder, and now you can drive your hips in and start fighting. Or like I just showed, you put your foot on the hip, your leg comes across the waist, and you lock up a triangle with your legs, and now we can draw our elbow back, and then we're in on that choke. So that's the very first thing, is if I can hip into their lower back, if I can put pressure on their lower back, I can force the shoulders open with my elbow and the pressure on their back, which will make it so that it'll be easy to get into the chin, okay? The next thing to think about is the hand fighting battle. So even if I'm just talking about like somebody walks up behind you and tries to put on a rear naked choke, or maybe you walk up behind somebody and you're trying to apply your own. When you're here, and you see this a lot in MMA because they have gloves on and they can't quite get to where they need to. But when I get under the neck with my first arm, you'll see people grab their hand and then the person defending will just grab the arm that's trying to get behind the neck, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm basically allowing him to grab this. And if you're really bad about it and I don't move at all, you can actually armbar people against the shoulder there if they don't turn their thumb. So there's also that dumb armbar. So the hand fighting battle comes from his ability to grab my hand where my index finger meets my palm, meaning if he reaches up and he pulls down on my forearm, like in the center of my arm, and I'm able to lace a good choke here, I'm just gonna choke him right through that because he didn't attack the end of the lever. I talked about that in one of the earlier videos. So when I get under the chin, he needs to find this hand, right? So now, if I get under the chin and I lace my second hand, now my first hand is hidden and he needs to peel the second hand off. So if I just leave it on top of the head, or if I touch my bicep and start walking it up, it's very easy for them to just grab that meaty part of that index finger and just pull straight down. And now the arm that's behind the head, I could still try to choke him. He's like 1 second away from pulling that one down. So whenever we rear naked choke, we want to try to hide our hand behind our partner's neck. And then I'm going to hide my wrist and my hand by either closing my fingers or at least taking my chin and digging it on top of my own wrist into my partner's head. And that adds pressure and makes it so that I finish the choke and I'm covering the hand. So again, defensively, if I just did it with one hand, all he has to do is grab the index finger and we're down. or the palm next to the index finger. If I do it with 2 hands, but I leave my hand like on top of the head or something, I'm giving him easy access to that index finger. So when I go under the neck, I want to snake it behind, and now I'm going to clamp it in place by tucking my chin. And I also see this all the time where people take their head and they look away from their partner. This is allowing him the ability to like not have too much pressure put on the back of his head here, because I'm basically turning my power away. When I turn into my partner, it adds so much pressure. And I'll talk about the finishing mechanics on the rear naked choke in a second, but I don't want to take my pressure away from my partner by looking away. I want to try to look towards them and take my chin and basically act like there's a crowbar in my partner's neck, and I'm like taking my head and I'm like prying his neck into that crowbar. So again, defensively, I'm unrounding the shoulders. Now we've talked about the actual hand fight once you get your hands in. Once I get under the neck and I lock my chin forward, the finishing power from the rear naked choke, and again, I've talked about this briefly, but I'm trying to go a little more in depth now. The finishing power comes from so many body parts that are not my arms. This is super important. So what I don't want to do is be in a situation where somebody bigger than me is on my back and we're just fighting arm for arm. So meaning if I start lacing this rear naked choke and he just starts pulling on my wrist and I start squeezing my arms, it feels like we're just battling each other here because we're fighting. He's pulling with his arms, I'm squeezing with mine. So what I want to do whenever I get a rear naked choke, once I lace this up, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my torso towards the choking arm. So when I lock this up, I'm going to start twisting towards the choking arm. And if you twist enough, eventually you'll end up just getting the tap on that alone. So once I have my tight chin, once I have my chin forward, we can just twist towards the choking arm for the first part, right? So twist is the first part. The second part is because my right arm is under the neck, I'm going to do a one-handed row. So I'm going to use my back muscles now, right? So I use my core for twisting, and I'm going to use my back muscle where I row. So my arm is like being pulled into his neck. That crowbar is being forced into the throat. So twist, and I row at the same time. Also, my shoulders retract backwards. So I'm kind of pulling my elbows into his neck by pulling my shoulders behind me, right? So it's like I'm pulling my arms back just with my shoulders here. So that's the next part. Again, none of these are using my arms yet. And then from there, after I twist, after I row, after I pull my shoulders, I'm going to start to dig my heels down, whether I have a body triangle with my legs or I just have hooks or crossed ankles, whatever it is. I dig my heels down and then I drive my hips forward, again, adding more pressure to their lower back. So all these things are happening, all these big, strong muscle groups, right? My core, my back, my hips, my legs, because I dig my heels in and drive my hips forward for the finish. And then at the very end, you can squeeze your arms. But I hear all the time people say like, oh, look at that squeeze they have. That shouldn't be your focus. Your focus should be to engage your entire body whenever you do a rear naked choke. So again, his chin's tucked, his shoulders are rolled forward, I'm on his back. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically uncurl his body by driving into their lower back and squeezing that elbow down. And now when I'm ready to fire in, I shoot for the choke. And then I'm not gonna touch my bicep because it's gonna be easy for him to defend. Again, I need to hide my hands. This is exposing my hand. I snake my hand behind the head and I lace my rear naked choke. My chin goes over my own wrist, trapping my own hand here. And now as I dig my heels in, I twist, I row, I hip in, and I pull my shoulders back all at the same time. And one of the main benefits of this is all these mechanics work the exact same, and I'll do it gently. Even if my partner tucks his chin, you can just go right over the face. Be careful with your training partners. But now that we've learned how to use all the power in our body properly, once you lace this, yeah, you can put it on and it comes on super quickly. And it doesn't even matter if you go right over the face. A lot of the higher level black belts are doing the exact same thing. And the way that they're finishing that way is because they use so much of their body and they're not just coming here and just like flexing their arms. They lace the choke, they rotate, they pull, they retract their shoulder blades, they drive their hips in, trying to use their whole body on that rear naked choke. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Oh yeah, thank you.